Hello, everyone. You've made it. This is the end. Just a few sort of reflections to try to sum up where we are. And as promised, I will keep this brief because every minute you spend watching these videos right now probably feels like a minute that you've devoted to coursework that's not spent on your final reflection and paper. So won't be too long. But first, I just want to thank all of you for sticking this out, being a part of the class, and hopefully you have benefited from this, not only in the sense of what you have learned as a set of propositional content to say that Augustine thought this about such and such, Ruther thought that, Kung thought this, but that by looking at how these ethicists, ministers, theologians have examined issues, you've seen their method enough, and we've been able to speak about it enough that you possess a toolkit. That was ultimately the goal for any type of introduction. You can't hope to cover the breadth of everything. I'm sure that it's been obvious even in this last section that there is just there are so many things going on, only in the field of sort of interpersonal relationships and our concerns for human action, that it's overwhelming. You think, well, I could have done a whole section on euthanasia. I could have done a whole section on abortion, a whole section on any single issue, and that's exactly right. In fact, the people that produce these texts very often have devoted their entire academic lives to the careful consideration of a particular issue. So, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I understand that and say you're not alone. There's a real sense in which there is just too much to know. There are too many what ifs to sort of grasp everything with any type of full mastery. And so the goal then becomes, rather than full knowledge of everything, at least full or something like competent capacity to engage with whatever set of particular ideas, conflicts, or positions you might encounter in your life. So this class was at least a move in that direction, and you have all, in the work that I've seen you produce and the discussion that you've had online, you've all ably demonstrated your ability to step up and learn and inculcate that. So, well done, all of you. You might not feel like the work's done yet, but pat yourself on the back now. Know that I've sort of attempted to be the pace setter on this race. But I think that you all now are able to finish it in a good way. I said I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the questions that you might have had. There were a few that had been posted, and so just to refer to those in a popcorn manner. One of you, I think it was Karen, saw the line in coming from Aquinas about the ordered emission of semen, which seems like a strange thing. And below in the comments on that, I think it was Allison that said the idea is that the procreative act and the insemination of a woman is supposed to connect the procreative act and the raising of a child, and that's true. But it's true in perhaps more depth than you might initially think, because if we're hoping for is not only the production of life or the creation of life by the birth of a small human, there's something about the proper or ordered raising of that child that's implied as well. So that means that hypothetically, let's say, I don't know, you have someone in your congregation in some years' time, or maybe you have a son or daughter that wants to be an astronaut. And you know that in the future, You have someone who wants to be an astronaut, and they are married, so they've got the family unit ostensibly created, and the astronaut has sex about 9 months before they're supposed to be deployed to space for a year in an astronaut or on a mission to Mars, whatever it might be. That then might actually not be a good idea, or it might be an unethical decision using this Thomistic approach, because the order of operations, or the sequence of events that begins with union in marriage and then proceeds to sexual intercourse with the intention of then producing a child, if you know that that child will be born in an environment where the raising of that child is actually going to be quite difficult because someone's spouse is away from planet Earth. This is the kind of thing that Thomistic thought would caution against, because this would be a disordered raising of that child right at the point in time where they might need both parents the most. It is already known that that one parent will be absent from the relationship. So that sort of forethought that is strangely connected to the emission of semen is sort of what Aquinas is getting at. That it's not only will this child be raised or will this child be born, is this sex designed or at least open to the possibility of creating a child, but then further down the road, is it also open to a situation where it's possible for that child to be raised well? That's sort of the line of thinking that Thomas is taking there at that point. Now, there was another separate remark about Augustine's opinion on suicide and whether or not it's something that could be forgiven. I think that's from Tanya. I think what he's actually doing there is offering like a type of rhetorical device. He's saying, well, obviously, this is something that, and the idea, just to read Tanya's post, some women killed themselves to avoid suffering anything like rape, and surely any man of compassion would be ready to excuse the emotions which led them to do this. That type of tone is what you should hear in Augustine. Well, surely we should excuse this. And Augustine then says, actually, no, we shouldn't. So he is creating this straw man out of popular opinion, which saw this type of avoidance of suffering as being acceptable. And Augustine actually comes down against that. So I'm less sympathetic to this type of, frankly, I think Augustine, who's otherwise an excellent pastoral voice, we learn just as much from his sermons in Hippo as we do from his more learned treatises. But I don't think that this demonstrates a real sort of pastoral care for those types of, those individuals who do suffer in this way and actually fear the suffering that could be imposed by something as traumatic as rape. So it doesn't mean we're beholden to Augustine's point of view, but I think that is what he is getting at. And with regards to being beholden to the view of any of these people, I'll sum up, or I'll conclude just with a comment on something that Lawrence had said about how he appreciated the chance to read these classical authors, but feels less inclined to continue to engage with them, especially because their contexts historically are so different from ours. And it's worth pointing out that this tension is not unique to Lawrence, but actually there's a real sense that our ability or our even the possibility of discussing these things is almost a unique product of our strange historical epoch. By that, I mean we read Augustine as a classical author, as an author speaking for the people of antiquity as representative of their ways of thinking. And we read Aquinas as a medieval figure who represents the height of scholasticism. And we read Luther as a product of the Reformation and all of the tensions involved in that. But That's not how they saw themselves. Augustine didn't look at his own writing and say, clearly this is antiquity. And Aquinas similarly didn't say, I am a scholastic, and this is the medieval period. And similarly, we ourselves dissimilarly, we don't do that. We call ourselves modern quite explicitly, or perhaps we call ourselves postmodern. But you and I, when we speak of our ideas, more often than not speak of a type of self-aware embeddedness in a historical moment. And so when you consider that there are different periods of time, and then either big ideas or big world events are epoch shifting, so everything changes with the fall of Rome, which is a gloss over the fact that the dissolution of the Roman Empire really, when we discuss it, really is only in the West, not the East. It glosses over the fact that this dissolution actually took about 150 years to achieve what historians would consider a real closing of the Roman Empire as such. And then, nevertheless, the Holy Roman Empire continues to exist right up until what we would actually call the modern period. This type of strange bracketing of different periods of time is a useful way to group similarities together, but it becomes difficult for us today to do anything similar because our self-awareness of our own historicity is made more problematic by the fact that we don't really know what we are in, and we're almost incapable of getting past modernity itself. There becomes almost a phenomenological account of this historical perspective because we consider the appearances or the way that we receive these images or these ideas from the past. And so we can pick up the work of Augustine and consider it from different angles and get different ideas about what it was like to live in Hippo, what it was like to be a North African Christian in a world still connected to paganism. And we have the benefit of a variety of perspectives, even though we don't inhabit that moment chronologically. To us today, we have a very different way of perceiving because we are present historically. Now we are alive, we know what's going on, we have a feel for things, but that at the same time makes it impossible for us to get outside of our own heads, to get outside of our own culture, to gain more perspective on what is happening. And frankly, this is one of the reasons why we frequently discuss at a non-theoretic level the idea of diversity or the benefit of diverse viewpoints, because there are people and cultures around the world who, by their very nature as being embedded in different cultures, different linguistic contexts, different economic positions, can themselves offer that perspective, which we do not inherently possess. So the past can be considered from a variety of ways. We can interrogate it using different methods, different types of intentionality as we look at that. But we can never be in full dialogue with it. Whereas today, we have the ability to dialogue with that which is different from us while being denied the type of perspective, the type of intentionality and examination that we benefit from when considering the past. So this extends to ethical reflection. This extends to classical authors. We can see what it was like for them to reason through these decisions, but we can't actually ask them questions. Well, when you said this, what did you mean? We can infer things, but we can't actually engage in that dialogue. And today, the converse is true. So that's a unique challenge of any type of ethical reflection. Similarly, those medieval, those classical authors who we examine, they may have imagined a world that was in the future. And they could sort of prognosticate or theorize, but they also cannot interrogate us. And this chasm, this gap of time, makes our inquiries both more useful and more difficult. So I can appreciate the idea of thinking that Aquinas or Augustine just is not worth our efforts today. And I would simply say that for those of you who are not looking to become professional ethicists, which is probably all of you, then the best thing that you can do to keep this debate ongoing, to continue to sharpen those tools in your toolboxes, is not continue to read Augustine, not continue to engage with Luther on a weekly basis, but do your best wherever you are, in whatever field or position you find yourself in, to actually engage with people that are a part of these traditions, or engage with academics today who have, through some sort of peculiar form of self-loathing, decided that they want to devote their entire lives to the study of the work of these people. So, if you have someone in your parish that's an art historian that is deeply committed to Renaissance art, talk to them and engage with what the Renaissance meant. If you are looking for opinions or sort of book studies to do with people in your congregation, then find someone who's a Thomist that might have written a book. Find someone that is explicitly Augustinian. I encourage you to, well, for one, I think I've said this before as one possible source. If you want to consider ideas like this that are contemporary but engage with this type of academic culture, I still think there is no better place to sort of fire up the web after you've read the paper, or you've gone through the Globe and Mail website, or whatever you do when you try to get your news and you're looking for some type of meatier thing to chew on as you go through life. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation's Religion and Ethics online section still has essays and op-ed pieces being put out by people who are experts in their field from a variety of religious traditions and non-religious sort of ethical traditions. And that will keep you in touch with these streams of thought without you having to do the digging yourself. So that's my one final way to just ask you to keep your tools sharp. It's been a pleasure making these videos, calling you on the phone, dialoguing via email or however it might be, even text. And so thank you for the chance to be a part of this activity with you. And best of luck as you finish up your work for this course and others as the sun starts to shine outside. Enjoy your spring, and may God bless you wherever your life takes you. Thank you for being a part of all of this, and bye for now. Oh, and one final thing, just as like a simple postscript, I want to deeply apologize on behalf of the awful YouTube algorithm that seems to manage to find the absolute worst stills from within these videos to make a sort of the cover page or the splash page of the videos. I have no control over that, or at least I don't possess the technical savvy to actually control how that works. And I can only imagine what it's like every time you fire up Brightspace and then log on to watch the video, and the first image that you get is sort of something like, it's like a series of outtakes, except this is actually the visual cue that is the lead every time. So I appreciate the the forbearance you have all had in not commenting on this, but I'm sure it hasn't been lost on you. And just a note of caution for any of you that might want to put stuff up online a lot, maybe sort of make a video title page. Looking back, I should have done that. So just as another practical thing, sorry for all the weird faces, and I hope that it didn't sort of throw off the tone too much as you were reading these or watching these. That's all. Bye for now.